game, as far as I'm always concerned, is the college game, and the one we carry every single weekend is the UCLA Bruins. Start to the season, not bad. 2-0. Team is growing. UCLA is taking on South Alabama, the Jaguars. Kickoff is at the Rose Bowl, 11 a.m. Pregame starts at 8:30 a.m. from Lot H with Tim Cates, Matt Stevens, Wayne Cook. Tickets start at just $25 at uclabruins.com/tickets. Joining us is the leader of the UCLA football program, developed more players and put more players in the pros than USC and anybody else in the Pac-12 since he's taken over. And this team looks to be strong and a lot of exciting guys, some of them transfers. It's Chip Kelly joining us on the Chevy Silverado Celebrity Hotline. What's cracking, Coach? How are you?
Well, I'm good. We had a good training session this morning, and then we're within 48 hours of kickoff now. We got an early morning start. We got an 11 o'clock game on Saturday, so we're excited.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, starting the season, whether you start the season, at College Station or you start the season like you guys have, kind of at home, getting things rolling against different opponents, a lot we haven't seen. It was great to see an HBCU in there last week, and I thought you handled it great with all the different guys you played. But is there a philosophy to approach these games as opposed to a Pac-12 game, or is it all the same?
It's really all the same. I think you respect everybody you play. You fear none. Last year we opened up with a really good schedule. Had a big win in our open over Hawaii, then played LSU at home in a great game and beat them there. So the schedules in college football are made so far in advance that you really have no say. Like, hey, I'd like to have it set up this way because we picked up the Alabama State game when I first got here. Michigan dropped us. So we were scrambling to find a game, and there weren't a lot of games available. So that's kind of how that one fell. South Alabama had been on the books since I got here. And they're actually a really good football team. They're doing a really nice job. They had a big win last week over Central Michigan. They're coming out of the Sun Belt, which we're aware of last week. Georgia Southern went to Nebraska and beat them. Marshall went to Notre Dame and beat them. And Appy State went to Texas A&M and beat them. Three of their conference teams went out and knocked off some of the big boys. So we know what the challenge is this week, and it's going against a really well-coached and a good South Alabama team.
Yeah, just ask Jed Fish how they got North Dakota State on their schedule on Saturday night. It happened before he got there. This kind of stuff is always changing. But why do you think that is, Coach? I mean, we spent the whole offseason, and you were at the Fox seminar talking. We spent the whole offseason, it feels like, talking about NIL and who's got the most money and who's got all this. And here comes Appy State and Marshall and all these teams. Washington State, a team that people hadn't been talking about, with a giant fist in the face of college football. That's kind of refreshing.
It is. And obviously there's been a turnover in how college athletics are viewed with NIL and transfer portal and conference realignment and those things. But it's still a game played by young men. There's still emotion involved in the game. I don't think you can put a price tag on someone's heart. And when you find that right mix of guy, then you got something special, and that's really what we've been shooting for here. We spend so much time in our recruiting process on the character and the intangibles of the student athlete as much as we do as the skill set of the student athlete. So, it's refreshing to know that the teams that work the hardest, come together the best, are committed to each other and committed to a common goal, still get a shot in this game.
Coach, in the NFL, you get multiple weeks of a training camp, then you get multiple weeks of the preseason. Now they're down to 3 games, but normally it was 4 and sometimes 5 if you played the Hall of Fame game. But at least you got opportunities to try and see where you were at as a team. In college football, you just jump straight to the regular season and it counts. How long into the season in college do you feel like you guys are running full throttle and where you need to be as a team?
Probably. It's a great question, and I've said it before, because we don't have a preseason. You're still not sure what you have. Sometimes it'll take 3, 4, 5 games till you kind of hit your stride, because you could actually say, hey, we got a pretty good lineup and we feel pretty good in game 4, but then you lose a player or two, and then you got some of those young players that saw some playing time maybe early in those out-of-conference games are forced to take on an even bigger role. But it is different. I think that's what makes college football so intriguing, is that each week you're just there's always a score, no matter what week it is. It's like, hey, did you see what happened in that game? And everybody kind of, it happened last week when we came off the field. Our quarterback coach, Ryan Gunderson, was, I saw him in the locker room after the game because he's in the box. He goes, "Did you see the scores out of conference?" And I was like, "I hadn't seen anything. I was on the field coaching." He goes, "It's crazy." And Notre Dame won, Appy State won, and it was like, wow. I mean, it's what makes college football so great because you can't predict it.
Would you prefer if there was at least one preseason just to try and get whatever you needed to out of the way to feel like you were more prepared for the regular season? Not that it would actually happen, but would you prefer it that way?
No, all I'm for in anything is that the rules are the same for everybody. So no one else has an advantage in college football because it's not like they have a preseason and we don't. So if we're either all in or all out. So if everybody's got to deal with, we don't know much about our team until we get tested, then they have the same. We're playing by the same rules. So I like it the way it is. I think sometimes you got to look at the health and safety factors. What are you going to do? Are you going to add another game? If you add another game, that's another bunch of hits that kids are getting. This isn't the NFL. The NFL plays a 17-game regular season and a 3-game preseason. That's 20 games. I don't think 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are ready for that many games. So I don't think they'll ever add a preseason because if you had to add a preseason, the only logical way to do it is to take away a regular season game, and no one's going to take away a regular season game. So I think the number we have right now is pretty good.
Chip Kelly is our guest on the Petros and Money Show. UCLA taking on South Alabama. Tickets still available, UCLABruins.com/tickets. Coach, you've done college football long enough and been in the sport your whole life to know having a quarterback with experience and a big, tough running back that can get you yards is a huge bonus. How different is it with a guy like DTR who's been playing in your offense for a long time and a great example of what you guys have been doing in the transfer portal with, like Charbonnet?
Yeah, it's comforting, to know that when, we dealt with the offseason with the NFL and whatnot, we had a couple kids leave that had eligibility left. Kyle Phillips, who's starting for Tennessee now. Greg Dulcich, our tight end, who went to Denver. But when Dorian and Zach decided to come back, there were a lot of happy smiles around Westwood. And it's just comforting as a coach when you have a player that's been in your system for as long as Dorian has been in our system. You kind of finish each other's sentences. There's a real cool give and take of what do you like here, what don't you like here, I've not been in this situation before. I've never had a kid for 5 years, and this is it's enjoyable, and we're enjoying it right now.
I saw the tweet this week from the program's Twitter page about Transfer U and the building and all that. And then, I think about guys who have developed through the program, like Dulcich and the guys that you mentioned. How do you balance that out, being attractive to transfers, but also developing your own guys in your program? I guess everybody's kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as like the NFL. I think the draft is high school recruiting, and it's the foundation of how you build your team. It's interesting when you look around the landscape of college football. I think 49% of all quarterbacks in college football right now are transfers. In the Pac-12 itself, there's only 2 teams that have that don't have transfers starting at quarterback, and it's ourselves and Stanford. So that's really going to be what we build our team around, the high school. So that's the draft. But I think you have to supplement your team in the NFL and free agency. And we supplemented our team with transfers. And I think the one point about that is that the transfers that we had an opportunity to bring in here have made an impact on our team. We're not just trying to accumulate depth. We evaluated kind of like I learned how to evaluate free agency in the NFL, however this kid fit into our system and how can he make an impact on our program. And I think our staff has done a really good job from that standpoint of making sure that the guys we bring in here really fit both academically and athletically. And I couldn't be happier with the guys we have, the Charbonnets and the Murphy twins and Liatu and some of the other guys that have been really, really impact players for us. Darius Marsu at inside linebacker, Jake Bobo at wideout. We had a need when Kyle Phillips left, there's a kid who had 97 targets for us last year. So how do you go out and find a number one receiver? Well, we found a number one receiver from Duke. And I think it was a good fit for Jake, both academically and athletically. He graduated from Duke. He's enrolled in grad school here now. So I think there's an art to it, and I think we're doing a good job when it comes to the portal.
Coach, you were one of the great innovators over the past several years as far as offense and practice and things like that. How do you stay ahead? Because it seems like every year there's a new wrinkle, there's a new layer of offense in football, not only at the college level but pro level. I mean, even high school games I look at and think, well, that wasn't around when I played. I have no idea what the hell's happening. How do you stay ahead or at least keep up with all the changing that's going on in today's football?
It's a great question. And I think what you're trying to figure out on a yearly basis is what fits the skill sets that our players have. And I think part of that mindset is to not be, never make the statement as, well, we're going to do it this way because we've always done it that way. Our job is to create an environment where the players have a chance to be successful and then get out of their way. So, you may tweak it in the off season where you're throwing the ball a little bit more because you got a returning quarterback and you got some really good wideouts, or you may tweak your run game a little bit because of what you got coming back what you got coming back from a run standpoint. So I think part of it is just trying to adapt to your team. What are their skill sets, and then match what you're doing schematically to what those guys are capable of doing.
The one and only Chip Kelly, big games coming up every week for the UCLA Bruins. The world of college football and the landscape constantly changing. Defensively, do you feel like your team is developing on that side of the ball, Coach, and getting what they need to get early in this non-conference?
We are. I think our front four is better than it has been since I got here. Really our front seven. I think we can generate a pass rush without having to send the house. We're really excited about some of the additions we've made from that standpoint. But we still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to get tested on Saturday. Major Applewhite's the offensive coordinator at South Alabama, does a great job. Speaking of the Chargers, Gus Bradley's son, Carter Bradley, is actually the quarterback for South Alabama, and is a really good quarterback transferred in from Toledo. So we got our hands full, in terms of this team coming in here offensively. They've been really successful in their first two games against Nichols and Central Michigan. So, it's going to be, as I told our players, this will be the best team we faced so far this year. So it's going to be a really good challenge, and our guys are excited about it.
A lot of fun watching UCLA so far this year. We'll see how it shakes out on Saturday. It's an early kick at 11 a.m. right here on AM 570 LA Sports. Thank you, Coach. Have a great week.
All right, Petros. Look forward to seeing you soon, buddy. Thank you.